America, talk to me, Lauren Collin, and let us go beyond what you believe to better understand why you believe anything. I am not here to debate. There are plenty of places for speaking right past one another. Nor am I here to judge. Here on the We Unite, We Win podcast, user-generated America series, I will speak to anyone willing to give me an hour of their time to share their clearly stated morals, ethics, religious beliefs or lack of, and views of humanity that inform their personal approach to culture, politics, and government. The aim of the UGA series is not to change anyone's mind. I am doing this in the hopes that you, the listener, will join me in putting aside your assumptions and listen to the guest for an hour. If the conversation gets you to ask a question about yourself, your own beliefs, and why you believe anything, all the better. I am excited to always be bringing you more of this content. Please consider supporting this work and becoming a paying member at $8 per month by visiting weunitewewin.com. Today's guest is Cynthia Clemons. I met Cynthia over the summer at a Los Angeles housing advocacy group chapter meeting. A natural advocate for all people, Cynthia seeks a better world for herself and everyone around her. Listen as Cynthia shares with me where her beliefs come from and how her journey shapes who she is today. Let's chat with Cynthia Clemons. I am joined by Cynthia Clemons on the We Unite, We Win podcast, user-generated America series. I am excited to talk to Cynthia. I met her here in Los Angeles at some housing abundance events. Yes, in my backyard, go Yimbys. Cynthia is a passionate person, passionate about what she wants in life for herself, passionate about what she wants for her neighbors and her communities. I am excited to talk to her and have her share more of not just what she believes, but why she believes. Welcome, Cynthia.
Hello.
Give us the brief synopsis of who is Cynthia? Where are you from? How did you end up in Los Angeles? Is there like a moment or a thing that you want to share that says, this is Cynthia?
I have a moment to share that this is Cynthia, but I was born in New York City in Queens. And when I was 2, our family moved us to Atlanta, Georgia. Then went through college there, moved to New York City later. That's where I met my husband. And then and that was during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. Got married during the pandemic. Shortly after, we decided to move to Los Angeles, and that's where we've been since 2021.
Amazing. That journey from Queens at the age of 2 to Atlanta, I assume there's not much memory of the move, but were you still connected to that family in New York, or is your life someone who grew up in Atlanta?
Yeah, it was 20 minutes outside of Atlanta to the south, Clayton County, Georgia, Jonesboro, Georgia. Yeah, it was suburban. We were not that connected to the city. My siblings and I, it was just kind of like a fantasy, that we'd hear our parents talk about, like New York. We knew we were from New York, but had no memory of it. I didn't anyway. Maybe my older brother did. But and I didn't really reconnect with family up there until after I moved there myself, actually.
Is there the family lore of why your parents moved from New York down to Atlanta?
Yes, my aunt had moved there first, my mom's sister. She had gone to Clark Atlanta University. I don't know if my mom had visited or not, but I guess through hearing like how affordable it was and how nice it was down there, it seemed like a good place to raise a family. So they decided to move there after that.
You went to university in Atlanta also?
Athens, Georgia, the University of Georgia.
Go Bulldogs?
Yeah. Yeah, same initials as your podcast. When I was reading a synopsis, I was like, oh, he has a UGA guest. This is great. I won't be the first. But yeah.
You're actually the 4th from Georgia, or at least has lived there for a long. Yeah, it's just out of 5 so far. It's just how this is the weirdness of all of this. But you're the only one who lives in LA now.
Okay.
Growing up, was there a point where you started to think about pursuing your own happiness and what your own happiness means to you?
I don't know if it was happiness I was, dreaming about. I had like, dreams for the future, but I guess I felt happy when I was a kid, looking forward to just being older and more independent. I'd always dreamed of moving to the city so New York was the city I had always wanted to move to. When I did, I wasn't disappointed. I'd actually wanted to go to college there, so I wanted to get there even sooner, but that didn't happen. And yeah, pursuing happiness. Oh, yeah. Yeah, like that wasn't really a conscious thought. And that's a privilege, I recognize. Not having to pursue or not even thinking of it as something to pursue. Then more lately, I'm 36 now. It's 2025, so there are a lot of different definitions that cross my mind about like what life is going to be and what I'm going to accept.
You said there you had a privilege where you kind of were probably just you were able to do what you wanted, and it felt bad. It felt more open, and then we all grow up. But we also all grow up very differently. So as you're living your life, is it post-COVID? Was it during COVID? Was it like right before COVID that these thoughts started happening?
That would probably be in my early to mid-20s. Yeah, because after college, I had gone into the Peace Corps, had a wonderful 2 years there. I was in Ukraine, Simferopol, Crimea, to be exact. It was beautiful and lovely. And I consciously enjoyed my time there. Like the entire time there, it felt like every day was new. I was aware that I was like actually what I would describe as happy. And then I moved to New York City after that. That was like 2014. I got my first job rather easily. And I don't know if that was not a fluke, but I mean, I don't think people usually get like LinkedIn jobs that easily with no connection and being out of state, but I did. That didn't last long though. It was at that point where I started to think about like, what is going to make me happy? Will I even be happy? In my life. And work had a big part to do with that. So, just think like, is this something I want? Like, is work something I even want to be doing? It seems like something I have to do. I'm going to pay bills and, not have independent wealth. But yeah, that was.
I understand that.
Yeah, the reality of having to work was. I mean, I think it hit like a lot of people say like nobody likes work, Cynthia, or whatever. But I think it hit me harder than it does for the average American anyway.
Because you think you were looking to get more meaning out of work, and then when you found it doesn't necessarily, beyond paying bills, necessarily give you all the meaning necessarily looking for, was that sort of that disconnect there?
Well, not at first. I guess, I was also so privileged that I thought I could make money through art, through my creative work, which was comedy writing. I was going to be in New York City, taking whatever job would pay the bills. And at the same time, since I, felt like I was smart and, had a college degree, felt like I could also climb the corporate ladder at the same time while working on comedy writing and somehow also getting an agent and, getting in a writing room. It wasn't like necessarily a choice, but there was a time where I did have to take like an actual, I was taking a lot of temp jobs at first when I was really focusing on writing. And then like a few years of that went by, and then I, took a full-time job with the nonprofit. I tried to go the media route, and so I could get as close to the industry as possible. That didn't work out. So nonprofit, because my resume just screamed nonprofit with the Peace Corps on it. Then I just really like dove into that. So then I was in a place where I felt like I could get meaning out of work, because I was genuinely like putting a lot of time and effort into that because I genuinely cared about the work. So this new line of work felt meaningful. And the writing kind of fell by the wayside at that point. I did not stick to that, but that was not intentional.
Do you still write for fun sometimes?
I want to. I try to. Every now and then. And by that, I just mean like right now I'm working with some other people on some things. So I'm not necessarily creating my own. But I've dipped back into that. But yeah, I'd like to do more of my own writing, even if it's just for me, just, as a habit.
I wish you well on that journey. As a writer myself, I know how it can come and go. But when it comes, it's a lot of fun. So I hope it returns to you and brings that joy. Do you have an overall like framework for your morals and philosophy? Or for your ethics? Is it religion? Is it more outside of religion and like a traditional philosophy? Like what kind of is that bedrock foundation of your morals and ethics?
I mean, I'm sure a lot of it comes from experience. I don't know like how much of it I would say is like who I am. I was brought up in a Baptist church, but I was never active in it. It was like, we went with our parents on Sundays, and then I would say less and less in high school. So, I mean, there was that beginning foundation of being good according to the Bible, the Holy Bible. But then like in general, like for me, honesty is a big thing that I care about.
The virtues, right? So you go right to the virtues as far as like your ethics and morality, which is a great place to go.
I try, yeah. I can't. I wouldn't even say like a lot of that is connected to Christianity for me.
When you said you didn't go to church other than forced, did you ever believe, or this was just the thing that you did because you had to go?
Ooh, it was definitely something I did because I had to go. I don't know, like maybe 50-50. Like, I don't know.
Well, do you believe in that Christian God today, or that's
absolutely not?
Okay.
And it was always something I questioned. Yeah, even as a little kid, I remember telling my dad, like, I don't like church. Maybe I even said I hate church. I don't know what I said, but it made him mad. I just remember like, that's weird that kind of question would make somebody mad. I guess like at that point, I realized that this is like a dominant, oppressive force. Yeah, I guess I've always had this part of me that's just always been like, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I don't know if I ever really believed, but maybe I tried.
What do you remember kind of that journey to trying and then kind of finally settling on like, this is the world that I live in and I see this and it doesn't need a definer or a first start?
Well, I remember having imagery of like whoever this man in the sky was in a white robe, I take it, some white man who's, driving us all to do these different things. If we say these things in our mind to him or out loud, he will grant them to us, maybe. Or maybe he won't. I guess that would be me believing. But yeah, there was always, like, is that real? I always had questions.
You said your dad was upset. Did they continue to be upset, your family, or did they?
This was just like I was a kid. Like I was probably 5. Like I was very young. It was just like that moment. It wasn't like this overarching thing where I, needed to have conversations with them at every meal or every car ride. I just like it didn't become a conversation, of course, because it became very clear that we do not say out loud that we do not like church.
As you went through those tween years and teen years, and it's more obvious that you don't believe, did you stand out in your family? Did you stand out in your community in the suburbs of Georgia, or did you have a community you understood even as a kid of people who believed like you and had no religious belief?
That's a good question because it was Georgia. But I remember like a kid in school saying something about, what did he say? I think he just said, we don't go to church or something like that. I remember being like, and I was like genuinely just like inside, I was like, oh, like what's going to happen to Matthew? Like he doesn't go to church. But I think also like, hearing someone say that who was alive and well, made it clear to me that, there's probably, no need to do this thing. Like they don't seem to believe in God and they're fine. So yeah, definitely not alone. I'm sure most people were church going people in the area I grew up in, but like the church we went to was, I want to say like, it might've just been 45 minutes. But it seemed like forever. It was like, it was far away. I say that to say it wasn't like a community that we also had. So it wasn't like all my friends came from church. I knew people at school that went to the same church as me. Yeah, so definitely didn't feel like an outsider. My sister and brother are both 2 years apart from me. My brother's 2 years older, sister 2 years younger. Neither one of them were like, much more into the church than I felt I was. I'm sure they won't mind me saying, but now none of them are, unless my sister's gone back and hasn't updated me. But yeah.
Well, then she can come on the podcast and tell her journey. Tell us her journey too. That was kind of the journey as a younger person. And then, like you said, you end up with human virtues and you started talking about honesty. What are those virtues that stand out for you that are either your guideposts or at least maybe that, they kind of what you wish more that you did, but also maybe that you wish more of the world did? In addition to honesty, advocating for yourself, which I know that's hard. I don't know if I would say that that's like a virtue, but I mean, I think it's important for me to do. It's something that I know that I can do. Advocating for others, like if you can, like if you are privileged enough to be able to advocate for yourself, advocate for others too. I think those are the big ones. So things like wisdom or justice, courage, benevolence. I mean, courage, I would say, is more of like an aspiration. Justice, I still think about a lot. I like the idea of justice. I don't know how realistic it is to desire that, but I do like it, and I do strive for it for sure. What is justice to you then? Like, what would that be where you are in a world where you are experiencing justice and in theory, everyone else is too?
But that's the thing, because I mean, I feel like people probably have different definitions of like what is justice to them. Like, like I feel justified because this thing happened, which benefits me. But yeah, I mean, I guess what if we all? Is it possible that everybody could feel that that they have been justified, or are living with justice? What is it? I don't know. I guess because I think of it in the reactionary sense. I don't think I know the true definition of justice.
Well, again, what's true to you? That's what we're here for on User Generated America. Because what's true for you when we take it all together will ultimately has the bit of truth for all of us.
Obviously, I'm Black. My parents were raised in the United States, as were their parents and their parents. I do not know our lineage exactly from the continent of Africa. In this conversation, when I hear the word justice, I think the idea of revenge comes to mind, which I know that is not what justice is or is meant to be. When I think like, how would I, as a Black person in the United States of America, feel justice? Yeah, others might not agree with that. It probably wouldn't be as comfortable for them as they are now. But yeah, I don't know if I'm going down the right path with that idea of justice. So I don't want to. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, it is an experience that you have that.
What is the definition of justice?
It's not, well, to your point, there is not, I mean, there is that basically justice is the idea that at the end, we are each treated equally and potentially even fairly, right? For nothing other than being a human being. It's an ideal. Most of these, when they were coming out of the original Greek or even Chinese, because they, around 2,600 years ago, they're having similar conversations a world apart. It's still pretty much only meant for the people in power. So when a Greek says someone is a human with liberty and then they get to experience justice, they only mean to 15,000 white Greek men who are ruling Athens, their wives, their children, their slaves, who are other Greek people from the hills, right, who are their slaves. They're not even people. Right. So again, we have these ideals and justice as a virtue. And I believe all the virtues ultimately fall under the category of ideal. It would be amazing if we all lived up to them. So kind of that's the ideal of justice, that every single one of us gets to walk through the world as are.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Well, then that would explain why I would feel like why justice might feel or look like revenge from me, because I come from a group of people that have been systemically oppressed. So yeah, getting to a point where everything is equal. Like, so yeah, I don't know. Like, would we need to balance that out, or would we just need everything to kind of even out for it to be true? Definitely the absence of racism would help a lot with that, not having to live a life where I have to question what I'm saying or how I'm saying it or how I look or what my opportunities are going to be or why my opportunities weren't a certain way. So everything from that to actual resources like money and opportunities of ownership.
Is it a matter of, do you have to fix the past, and can you even fix the past? Or can we just say, without disregarding people's lived experiences up to now, but saying we can't fix the past, we understand your experience as your experience, which is why we start new-ish. But that new-ish would be things like universal healthcare, truly, right? Universal education, truly. A wage for a job, no matter who you are or what the job is, that allows you at the minimum to pay for your own clothes, your own food, and your own home. And if your employer is not paying you that, then they get taxed the difference of what they should be paying you. So you can afford those things, right? Is there a way to get to that universal justice without fixing the past, but also without pretending the past didn't happen?
If everybody was honest, then yes, people could look across the country or wherever and recognize some people have less than others. Not really a matter of people having more than others, but some people don't even have enough. And then on top of that, people should also have the ability for more when they want, so that they have the ability for, to make choices that they want. So beyond just like those basic needs, I think people deserve more than just basic needs, unless that's what they're happy with. If that's what they genuinely want, I think like not having more than enough should be a choice. There is a possibility to do that, but everyone would have to be honest, and that would mean people would have to not be racist, which is a historic thing that people are taught. So that part is kind of impossible. Ignoring the past would be impossible.
On that racism part, so do you believe the history of racism that came out of Portugal and Spain in the 1500s to create a new class of people to make the Atlantic slave trade palatable to poor European farmers? Is that is a history of racism that many in the anti-racist area believe? I accept it. I'm curious if that's like how you understand the history of racism too, or do you believe there's a different history of racism?
That is what I've accepted too.
Do you believe that there are different races of humans? No.
I believe that's a social construct.
In theory, the racist, though, believes that other people are not fully human. You believe that those people who hold those ideas now...
Pure, true racist belief.
Right.
Because they live today in different makeups.
Is there something that you believe would actually get that person to wake up one day and go, I'm not surrounded by others, I'm just surrounded by other human beings?
First, yes. I mean, I'm stereotyping, but surely like that's got to be someone in like the middle of absolute nowhere that genuinely believes people of different ethnicities are a different species. But I mean, education is like, one first and easy, usually most accessible way. Is there something that would get them to think beyond? I mean, for some people, it's going to be more extreme than others. Some people might have to be like in a life or death situation to realize we're just two bodies here, like that now have to survive whatever the circumstance is. Or if they're in a situation where, they need someone else who they believe is subhuman to them. And others, it can be different things. Some people like, hearing an experience could change their minds, or reading a book or seeing a movie could change their minds, or, having a new neighbor could change their minds.
How do you get to someone to have the open mind to listen for the second, right? Just for the split second to even be open to listening?
Everybody's different. Everybody has a different barometer of what it's going to take to get them to listen. Some people might need to be locked in a room with somebody and their hands tied behind their back or in front of their back, whatever, just so that they can't cover their ears, not to harm them.
From what I hear is you experience the indignities of racism. I don't know. I don't want to say daily. During your life. Okay. Yes. But do you think, because you said a second ago, like you have like the real racist has to believe like they're different species. Do you think the casual racism that you experience every day is not someone who necessarily believes that humans are different species, but still just finds a reason to find someone to be an other? Or do you think like there's some scientific, that's in air quotes for the world?
I do not believe it's scientific. It's definitely a choice. Sometimes it's subconscious, but which still came from choices though. I mean, once if you are a conscious adult, with the brain with those capabilities, then you do, whether you've thought about it or not, you do have that choice and options. If you are going through the world thinking that, people are different from you from a very basic standpoint, then that is a choice. That is a choice.
Is your experience different whether you go back to, say, the suburbs of Atlanta, or you go to Athens, to UGA, or you're in New York City, or you're here? Or as far as your worldview, it's, I'm Cynthia Clemons, I'm a human, I happen to also be a Black woman, but the Black woman part of it is the same? Or do you see others seeing you differently depending on where you are?
I definitely see others seeing me differently depending on where I am. Yes, I guess yes, full stop.
Is part of your journey of how you've traveled and where you've settled in your life, does it match you trying to find where you get to maybe be the most you, or is that still the journey that you're on?
That is definitely something I'm looking for. And yeah, it's definitely still a journey that I am on. And LA is a very hard place to do that.
Tell me more. How so?
Sure. LA, as much as it is known for being, a place of, honesty and realness, Psych. It lived up to the hype that I had heard. Like, my husband wanted to move here, just to be clear, and I was like, sure, why not? Sure, why not? I'm married now. Like, I did try to come live here not live, but I did come to check it out when I was, trying to come up in the comedy world. Like, Hollywood's out here. Some people move from or from New York to LA to pursue those goals. Let me go check it out. Why not? But yeah, I immediately noticed, coming from like a city like New York where it's like, super dense. So it's really easy to connect with people. It's very easy to connect with strangers there. It's very easy to find your community there. And then visiting here at first, that was in 2015, just seeing how hard it was to even make a buddy, or like, even if realizing even if I did live here, the likelihood of running into people is very low, very low. And I could just sense that, you had to know people who knew people. And like, even living here now, I still feel like that you have to know people. You have to be on some list, or you have to be in some club, or like it's high school. And then, and this might be because I'm in this, although I've heard this about other industries, I have worked in non-governmental organizations here, and then in the political advocacy space, like politics, for lack of a better term. Where people are doing things like, usually it's transactional. The friendliness isn't as honest. You realize, people are friendlier when you have something to offer, or where you're in a position where they understand that you might have something to offer them. Also, like, just this, I wouldn't say coded, but I guess like this other, language, where I used to joke that lying is a language in LA. It's okay to say, I'll see you at 12 for breakfast, and then not, that's totally fine. Or like, I'll come to your birthday party, knowing that you're not going to come is totally fine. It's acceptable. And for me, for someone who is very also direct and honest, this has been a hard city for me to adjust to, in terms of finding a place where I feel like I can be myself.
So are you finding more of it slowly? Is there a timeline, if it's not in LA, where you might go look for it somewhere else?
Maybe a timeline, but then circumstances change that. So like, I feel like right now I'm on I'm in an in-between space, in between two chapters of my life, realizing that is possible. Like, it's 4 years now here in LA, looking back and seeing like, what different steps could I have taken to maybe have found that community, or like, what can I do now? Also, how much do I want to do that now at this age? Like, I'm not like in my 20s where, I just feel like I have all the time in the world to build community and make friends, or, find my place in this area. But I am in a place where like nothing right now is tying me down to this location geographically. But that could change in a couple of months. I haven't found what the recipe is, but I know what the ingredients are. I know what the ingredients are, but I have to be smart, and strategic. And I guess I have to play the game.
Sometimes it is just the game of life. It's not even the game of LA. Do you think about that? Like, is it the game? Is it for you? Is it the game of LA, or is it the game of life? Is life a game? Should it be a game? Like, are these things that you kind of sometimes wrestle with?
Life is a game. And, where maybe like a few years ago, I would have said like, it sucks that life is a game and that we all, have to play it. But we are also organisms, we are animals in a sense. There are things, that we've created to control it, but otherwise there's nothing, stopping us from, running across the street and punching someone in the face.
Right. We are very much on the edge of our original nature. I think Thomas Hobbes would be excited. Sounds like you're Hobbesian.
I'll look into that.
He was the one that basically said that man came out of nature in order to provide that very basic of just stopping to murder each other. Governments, and this is a perfect transition, and that governments require extra levels of force to make sure that people don't kill each other and to stay in line. Remember, this is the beginning of the liberal tradition. You see humans as animals. I agree.
More and more.
More and more. But within the world of what we've also created to control it, as someone who is a comedian and is funny and likes art and pursued art, like, you still find the joys of that human animal and as worth pursuing.
I'd say I agree. Yes, I do. Yeah. No, yeah, I do see that's something, that we have the choice to pursue. Like, I've, gotten a taste of some of those things, so I know it's possible. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, like walking this line of learning more and then still like having, um, that view that those like, that as much is still possible.
What was it as someone, I assume in their early-ish 20s, to like, and I'm joining the Peace Corps, and was this before 2014 or after?
It was before. It was
Okay, so this is years before Putin invades the Crimea the first time.
Leading up to it, yeah.
So you visit, and I guess, honestly, like what got you to choose to do that and what got you to end up in Ukraine?
I mean, I remember enjoying community service in my teen years. Like, I remember waking up like at 5 or something in the morning to go like serve soup for the Key Club for Jonesboro High School. It was just, yeah, I don't know where that came from. It wasn't like something we were like made to do as children. Like we were definitely like our eyes were open to it. But I enjoyed that kind of work. Like I don't know. I enjoyed the idea of like giving to others, who needed things. Like, why not? I have the time. That's my virtue of equality or justice. And then I remember like thinking about joining the Peace Corps when I was in high school, like after high school. Then I realized it was way more, like it sounded more intimidating than I realized it was. Like I thought it was like you and like maybe 30 other, Americans in a community, and you go out and do things in the community. But then when I was reading, they were like, you're very independent. You live in a community by yourself. And I was reading this as an 18-year-old. So I was aware of the Peace Corps in high school. And then when I was in college, I remember somebody was getting ready to go into the Peace Corps. And she was telling us about like what she was doing to prepare. And I was, asking a lot of questions. And I was like, you know what? I think I can do something like that. I went through the process, which a lot of it does include like education about what it is, talking to returned volunteers about like what their experiences were. And yeah, so I made the decision to go after, like the application process was through my senior year of college. And I went September after I graduated.
They chose Ukraine for you, or you chose Ukraine?
A little bit of both. So when the Peace Corps first started, you had no say in where you would go. When I was doing it, you could make a preference, but they still let you know, like there's no guarantee that that's where they're going to send you. So having seen the pictures of South America and of course Africa, I was like, I want to do something different. You know what I mean? Or enough of them putting, these black and brown countries all over in all these pictures and brochures of, these downtrodden. But like, and then seeing that, Eastern Europe was on there, like, what's going on in those countries that they need, Peace Corps volunteers? Like, send me to one of those countries. So I did preface Eastern Europe, not knowing, anything about Eastern Europe or where they might send me. And maybe part of it too was also just like the traveling aspect of like getting to see those countries versus maybe living in a hut and taking bucket baths.
Right.
Having a mosquito net. I was like mentally preparing myself to be under a mosquito net and take bucket baths. And then, I opened it up and it was Ukraine.
What was your experience there? Like, what were your takeaways about the Ukrainian people, their needs, your personal experience as a woman and as a Black woman in a place where I imagine there were not that many people that looked like you?
Ukraine is a place that has suffered the consequences of, wars and bad leadership. They have their financial struggles. It's not something where they're in need of clean water and like very, very basic needs, but more of a thing where I guess like they, there were more resources that they could utilize from a country like the United States. That would be a whole different conversation about like why the U.S. government did want Peace Corps volunteers in a country like Ukraine. There's certain like American attitudes that are even different to Ukrainians or people who like, grow up with a government that they can't trust. I mean, like, I think the Soviet Union for them had ended in 91 or something. So like some people I knew, like, or many people I knew, like actually remembered that time, like before and after. So coming in with like those American sensibilities, those typical ones was, I think, useful and eye-opening for some of them. And my understanding of it, of Ukrainians is they are good people. They do like to give, which I think is a common feature in a lot of non-Americans, especially, and I'll just say it, non-white Americans. They just don't have this, individualistic ideas. I'm used to white people in one sense, and then like I go to Ukraine, and then like it's like these white people are a little different. They appreciate people. They like having people over. They're serious about their connections. They're serious about who they call friends. Yeah, and my experience there was great. I was concerned about being a Black person there, especially, from some things I was reading online in different forums about like, oh, they're a bunch of Nazis. Like, don't go to Eastern Ukraine. Like, people throw rocks at you if you're Black, whatever, which I think is true though. Like, I think I did know some Black male volunteers that did have experiences like that. I did not, as a Black female, and I guess also as a young one too. There was curiosity there, but I couldn't say that I experienced like the same form, or I don't even know if I'd call it racism there that I do here. Like, I remember even at one point, like, using that word to my students, like in a moment. I was having a moment. And they like gasped. They were like, oh, I was surprised even that they even saw that as bad of a thing as they did. I will say, being like somebody in her early 20s, I was teaching there. I was teaching English in a gymnasium too, which was like a private school, like that's what they call their private schools there. I studied English at school, but not like English education. And I was fresh out of college. And I was working alongside teachers that had studied English education. They'd been practicing it for years. They were very experienced, and the amount of trust they would have in me for like things that they should do, like coming to me with questions or asking me to lead a workshop. I was surprised and very humbled, but I will say that's something that I have not experienced back in the United States. Like, nobody has trusted me with my skill set as much as the Ukrainians that I was working alongside did. That was amazing to me, especially being a Black person in a country where most people are white or look white. That was, it really showed me a possibility of what could be and what should be. Here I am in the United States of America, and I am not treated that way.
I wish I had something meaningful to say after that, but what you said had all the meaning wrapped in it.
So I learned that Ukrainians are less racist than Americans.
Coming back here, did you have hope, kind of, and that hope was quashed? Do you still have hope?
I mean, sadly, tragically, at the time, I wouldn't even have called it hope. It wasn't hope. I expected that. I hadn't worked in like a professional environment. Like, I'd worked on college campuses and, in fast food in high school. But I wasn't like coming back being like, I hope they're as nice to me in the US as they are here. I didn't recognize it. Like, I was aware of like how nice they were to me in terms of my lack of experience, but it's so nice that they're doing this, even though I'm Black. Like, how nice of them. I thought that's how people should treat me because I'm human. It was an expectation when I came back to the United States. Like, I was also volunteer teaching a United Nations development program business English class for them after work. And I didn't know anything about business. So I would just use articles from Forbes, and I'd be like, well, we'll go over these articles. We'll talk about them. We'll go over vocabulary terms. It also was like a learning period for me because I was reading these articles about progressive ways to behave in the workplace, progressive ways to lead. And so, especially moving to New York City when I came back, I thought I was going to get like the top tier of that, philosophy. And I was surprised at how, what I would say, backwards it was.
In the sense that race is a construct, do people who look different from everybody still treat everyone different? Or is it really white people just treating everyone else poorly?
Oh no, it's everybody. It's ingrained. It's ingrained. And even if you're not conscious enough, you're doing the same thing even as a Black person.
You're an advocate at the most local level, advocating for change within the city of LA, within the county of LA. Kind of pulling back to the bigger picture. Do you believe that the government that in theory we've been living in for most of our lives, of this participatory democratic republic, is the best form of government and one that you would work to make better? Or would you scrap all of this and would have us govern ourselves in a different way?
From the not a lot of different forms of government that I've studied or am aware of, I mean, it sounds like they have some great governments going on in Western Europe, in Denmark and Norway. I don't know what forms of government they are, but they sound kind of nice. Usually, like when I'm writing things or like looking like where do they do this or where are the best places, like they're usually at the top of those lists. It's definitely a decent one. I don't know, but it's becoming something else, it seems.
Every day.
Every day. It seems like it's at risk of becoming something very different and not as, ideal is not the right word, but I guess as close to ideal as it is right now. So like, I mean, even with all the democratic systems that are within our government, there are still loopholes. They're not even loopholes. There are still, ways to make sure it's not representative of every voice. It's still serving, people with the most wealth and people who are the whitest.
When you're picking Norway and Denmark,
which are also white.
But the thing that they have is extremely high taxes on those white people.
Okay, that I did not know.
That's the trade-off. When I say extremely high, it's not like they're paying every last penny. They're paying 7 or 8% more than Americans do, but they actually get things in return for what they pay. They get universal health care. They get universal education. They get jobs that pay a living wage. And if a company doesn't pay it, then that company gets taxed because there should be no freeloading corporations. So in your mind, we have models that we should be moving to that are successful. And you would point to those as like where we should be moving.
Ideally, because I know there are a lot of, nerds or whatever that'd be listening and be like, well, that's not possible because of money and because we're such a big country, like Denmark and Norway are small countries. That's why they're able to do that or they whatever. Yeah, they're not as diverse, but whatever.
Right. But at the end of the day, they're also not as rich. Like our GDP per person still outstrips them.
See, that's why I would say back to them now that I know this.
Yeah. In the ways that, again, like you don't have a religion, is it safe to say atheist? Don't want to put words in people's mouth. Okay. And in the ways that, again, you identified, again, race as a social construct, we're all human beings. When it comes to things like hearing socialism or communism or fascism, or even what capitalism is.
I mean, the only one I really hear people openly identifying themselves as, like other than like political parties in the list that you just read would be capitalists. I know people are openly like really into communism and socialism. I don't hear anybody admitting that they're into fascism, but we know that some are.
Oh, if someone started attacking Denmark and saying we can't do Denmark because they're small, because they're homogenous.
Well, that's what I know people would say.
Well, right. So, but would another one be like that's socialism? But is that when someone says that's socialism, Denmark's socialist, and is the response like, so what? But they're wealthy and they're happy? My
response is, so what? Yes. I don't know. When I hear people argue against it, it does seem to go back to a capitalist thing.
The actual definition of socialism in the Marxian way of he actually doesn't care between socialism and communism, they're almost interchangeable, is no money, cashless state, no religion, no state at all, central planning, ownership of everything by the government. Like, that's not what, there's no version of that anywhere, right? It's just fear mongering at a certain point, no?
Oh, about it being a bad thing, about socialism?
Well, I guess, like, if you go online, you can see a committed socialist. And I've actually talked to one in real life. But by and large, I don't actually come across people who the thing they're saying that socialism is not, doesn't actually meet any real definition of socialism. They've just propagandized it to be, oh, if it's not this naked form of free market or laissez-faire capitalism, if it's not that type of capitalism, then it's socialism. Versus arguably Denmark and Norway are capitalist countries. Do you believe that greed is good?
No, I do not. In fact, it might even be a mental illness. It is not. No.
Do you believe that? Do you believe that excessive wealth is good?
No.
So here's the corollary to that.
No.
Yeah. Here's a corollary to that then is, do you think that the billionaires and centimillionaires, those who have at least $100 million in cash assets, do you believe that they earn all of that wealth?
No.
Then how do you think it is that they acquire all of that wealth?
Racism.
How does that racism work to help them acquire it?
It clears the room. It makes less competition for them. You're not competing fairly for these assets that you're working towards. You probably already had some because you were given them, because they were meant to be concentrated with people like you.
You actually gave what would in many ways be the classical liberal definition of not necessarily capitalism, but of a market economy, which is the competitiveness of it. And this is when we were talking about race earlier and self-interest. This is kind of where it seems like it all comes together. The wealthy created racism to pick the pocket of everyone down below them all the way to the bottom.
As a cost-saving mechanism.
Totally, right? Because they would still be rich anyway. This just makes them richer.
Mhm.
Do you feel there's a truth to the fact that your wealth, whatever it is you accumulate it, which is probably mostly through wages, is taxed at a greater percentage than the ultra wealthies? Like that their wealth. Yes.
Well, I mean, I've heard that it is. They keep taxing the rich. It sounds like they're not taxing the rich. I got to be honest, I've never looked into it. But yeah, it sounds like rich people don't get taxed at the same rate at which my working class ass does.
And if the change were just to have them pay the same taxes as your working class ass, if they were to pay that, that would start to then become a fairer system.
I don't know if fairer is the right word, and they should absolutely start with me. That would be great. Yeah.
You used a word just now that you used actually at the beginning where you're talking about the potential for equality or justice, which is balancing it out. You could actually see this as a way of creating a lever that moves the money to things that would help everyone: universal healthcare, universal education, a job that pays for, at a minimum, your clothes, your food, and your home.
Since homes have to be paid for, yeah.
You recognized that some people will be okay with what we say is the guaranteed minimum, but you don't believe that of most people, right? You believe most people actually want more and would work for more just because that's people.
I know a lot of people that are, happy to not travel. Like they're content. They're content, like with what they have. Like it's not even like they've acquiesced to that reality. It just seems like there are people, plenty of them that are content. Not traveling the world or having an exponential amount of friends or bigger cars or faster cars. I feel like most people probably, I mean, even just based on the fact about like how many people do live in cities that they didn't grow up in. Like a lot of that is choice. I know like a lot of it is also like circumstantial, but I think a lot of it is choice. I guess like the breakdown of wealth probably is a little bit representative of who really like wants more, despite who actually like ends up getting it or not. But yeah, I mean, because like even me, for example, like I don't just like look for any jobs that are just going to, give me just enough to live. I do like to travel and I like to shop and I like to eat out on the weekends, but that's definitely not something I have to do.
Maybe what's more important in that is that you get the choice.
Yeah.
Whether you're pursuing or not and what you're pursuing.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, where people aren't, just getting their basic needs because that's all they're allowed to. But, if they decide, like I want a bigger home or I want more of this amazing food or money, then they should have the ability to go get that. And it shouldn't be, there might be like, I don't know, capitalist reasons that it would need to be competitive. I don't know, but it should be fair. They should be competing with people with the same circumstances as they have or the same resources as they have.
Every time you use the word competitive, which you've used often, it warms my heart because I think that's really the system that we should create. And you said it earlier, right? Like the ultra wealthy have their ultra wealth because they removed the competition from it. And then they use the government to make sure that the competition doesn't come back. And what you're asking for is just restore the competition. I think there's two steps, actually. Restore the competition. And as you're restoring competition, that means that you're seeing every human being as an individual human being for who they are.
Fair competition is important to say there because, when I hear competition, it definitely, I automatically know that's not a fair thing. When we're talking about governments or money and we say competition, I know that I'm not like an equal competitor in that playing field.
There's things the government can do to make it more equal, to give everyone more of that chance to do more of those things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cynthia, if there's one thing that you could change or give to or do for the American people, whether it's politically, culturally, socially, emotionally, what is the one thing that you would like to see change for your fellow Americans everywhere in this country?
You said if I could give them that or?
Give, change, make, happen, snap the fingers, boom.
What would I like to see for my fellow, like all of them?
Sure. That's the spirit of the question. But if you have ideas that are, it's how you want to answer that This is your floor.
I mean, what immediately comes to mind, and nobody attacked me. Housing, owned property to live in. That is theirs. They own nothing for it. It's theirs. It's theirs, and it will always be theirs until they give it to someone else or sell it. Yeah. Housing, dignified, comfortable, amenities included, housing at no cost. That's what I would like to see for all of my fellow Americans, and why not the whole world? But yeah.
If there's one thing that you could change for the people here in Los Angeles, in your neighborhoods, within this fine city that you live in today, what is that one thing that you would give to them or hope for them or want to see them doing in their lives?
In addition to housing, let's say we all got the first question. Clear, accessible ways to participate in their local governments. Very clear, very accessible ways for everyone to participate in their local governments.
That one actually rings very true to my heart as well. I agree with you. It would transform our city for civic engagement to rapidly increase, but like you said, not just rapidly increase, become immediately accessible to everyone.
Yes. Yeah, not the letters in the mail, not the early morning meetings or the evening meetings. A very clear and accessible way for everyone's voice to be heard.
My final question, just about you now. What is the one thing that you hope for yourself or wish you could grant yourself or looking forward to a change in your life or a what's next or how you just want to experience life?
I don't want it to be tied to work. Obviously, I would like, an anti-racist future for myself. But I think people have already gotten that from this conversation. I'd like a world, where any money I wanted or, on top of my basic needs was a choice. And I was fairly allowed to get it, which I have not been, and I am not.
Cynthia, this was an amazing conversation. A wide range of topics were discussed. You discussed them openly and honestly. It was fun to sit here while you were thinking thoughtfully about your answers and then providing those thoughtful answers to us. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Cynthia has been the first guest on the We Unite, We Win podcast, user-generated America series, living in Los Angeles. However, she is our fourth of 5 guests who grew up in Georgia. Cynthia shared how those stops and the places she has lived in between has shaped her and how she has worked to shape those places to be better for all. I am grateful for Cynthia sharing the morals, ethics, religious beliefs, or lack of, and views on humanity that informs her approach to culture, politics, and government. I am excited to always be bringing you more of this content. Please consider supporting this work and becoming a paying member at $8 per month by visiting weunitewewin.com. Come back for the next episode to find out our next stop in user-generated America. No fear, only love.